Okay, let's look at how to graph parabolas. We're going to use a process where we're going to first find the vertex and then make an XY table and then find some extra points if we need to. Okay, so the vertex is defined by the opposite of b over 2a. A is the coefficient of x squared. If there's no coefficient, if there's no number there, then you can assume it's a 1. B is the coefficient of x, so in this case b is 2 and a is 1. Okay, so the vertex has the point where x is equal to the opposite of b, so negative 2 over 2 times a, so 2 times 1. So that would be negative 1 for x. So then what I'm going to have you do is make an xy table for our graph, okay? But instead of just choosing random points, I'm going to have us choose, so start with the vertex. And then we're going to do some points as getting larger than that. Maybe we'll go up to 2 and a little bit smaller. Okay, so we just plot some points around the vertex. All right, so let's see. I'm going to put in negative 1. So I've got negative 1 squared plus 2 times negative 1 minus 8. So that would be 1 minus 2 minus 10. That's negative 9. And then here, I love when you put in 0. That's really easy. That just ends up being the negative 8 because everything else zeroes out. And that actually, when you put x of 0, when you plug that in, that is how you find the x-intercept. Or no, sorry, the y-intercept. So we just found the y-intercept. Okay, so we can plot that point, 0, negative 8, negative 1, negative 9. Okay, let's plug 1 in. So 1 squared plus 2 times 1 minus 8. That would be, let's see, 3 minus 8, so that is negative 5. And we're going to do 2 squared plus 2 times 2. So that would be 4 plus 4 is 8. Minus 8, that gives us 0. Oh, there's an x-intercept. I'm going to go ahead and plot 1, negative 5, and then 2, 0. Okay, so there's one side of the graph. Now, with parabolas, the vertex is like, you have like basically like this little mirror that goes right through it, and there's mirror images over on the other side. So if you find one side of it, then you know what the other side looks like just by mirror image. But I'll show you how that works. So if you plug negative 2 in, we would get negative 2 squared is 4 plus 2 times negative 2. That is plus negative 4. That'd be 0 minus 8. That's negative 8. And you see how we got that point by the mirror image? And we'll get the same thing here for negative 3. Square that, you get 9 plus 2 times negative 3. That 9 minus 6 is 3, and then minus 8, that is negative 5. And there's that one. Okay. And then we could have kept doing a few more. If you haven't already found the y-intercept and the x-intercept, those points you need to make sure that you do. Okay, so to find the y-intercept, you plug x equals 0 into the equation. And to find the x-intercept, you plug y equals 0 into your equation. So you basically set your x squared plus 2x minus 8, you set that equal to 0 because the y equals 0. And then we have to use quadratic equation and use our quadratic formula to solve for x. Solve for x. Okay, so a equals 1, b equals 2, and c equals negative 8. And then we just plug that in. So we get opposite of b plus or minus square root of b squared. So 2 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 8. And that is all over 2 times a, so 2 times 1. And give myself a little more room. So I've got negative 2 plus or minus square root of 2 squared is 4. And then that would be negative 4 times negative 8 would be positive 32 all over 2. So we have x equals negative 2 plus or minus square root of 36 all over 2. And the 36 is 6. Square root of 36 is 6. Okay, so then it would give us x is equal to negative 2 plus 6 all over 2, which would be 4 over 2, which is 2. And that's the point we already found right there. Okay, and then the other one would be x equals negative 2 minus 6 all over 2. So negative 8 over 2, negative 4. And that's the point we found with the mirror image. Okay, and then just make sure that you do a nice smooth, it's supposed to look like a U. That U is called a parabola. It's a U-shaped graph. And anytime you have a quadratic equation and you know it's quadratic when you have a x squared, then the graph of it will be this nice U-shaped graph called a parabola. Okay, so there you go. So first off, find the vertex. That's step 1. Then you're going to make a table, and if you haven't found it yet, you need to find your intercepts as well. Okay, and then just really use that mirror image so you can find additional points that way. All right, there we go. Okay, we're going to do our next one. So here, a is the coefficient of x squared. It's just a negative, so that really does have a little secret negative 1. And then b is the coefficient of x. Okay, so our vertex is the opposite of b, so it'd be negative 4 over 2 times a, so 2 times negative 1. So this will end up being a positive 2. Okay, so we found our vertex, our x value, and then we'll make a table, xy table, and I'm just going to start with that 2, do some numbers smaller and some numbers larger. And that'll give me a really good sense of what this graph looks like. All right, so here we go. Plugging in 2. Here I would get negative x squared, so 2 squared. But really it's first you square it and get 4 and then make that, it's the opposite sign. So it would be negative 4 plus 4 times x, so 4 times 2 would be 8. And then we add 5 at the end. So negative 4 plus 8 is positive 4 plus 5 more, that's 9. Okay, so that's my first point. 2, 9. Right there. Okay, and now I'm going to do this next one. So I'm going to square my 1. That would just get me 1. And then it's the opposite of that. And then plus 4 times 1 plus 5. So this would be negative 1 plus 4 plus 5. Negative 1 plus 9. So that's negative 8. 1. Oh, positive 8. Oops. Okay, good. And there's that. Putting in 0, this is my favorite. It ends up just being the c value because everything else is 0. So that's just going to be 5 because it would be the opposite of 0 squared. That's just 0 plus 4 times 0. That's just 0. So it ends up being that 5. And that's my y-intercept. All right, and then this one, first we have to square our negative 1. Then we're going to take 4 times negative 1 and then add 5. So you'd have, oh, sorry, it's getting a little messy. Square your negative 1 and get 1, then make it negative. And then we have minus 4 minus 5, so that would end up being 0. So I just found an x-intercept. I have a y-intercept. Okay, and then using the fact that through that vertex, there's the mirror, and so I can just use the mirror image. Over here I have a point, over here I have a point. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You can just kind of count over how far you are. There we go. Okay, and that is the vertex. The vertex is either the highest point if the graph opens down, or it's if a graph is opening up, that lowest point would be the vertex.